Before we begin, thank you very much to Thomas A. for joining the Patreon campaign. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you for helping to keep the channel going and keeping it alive. I really do appreciate my patrons at this time of the year, because January and then February are notably the worst times to be a content creator. After Christmas, no one wants to pay good money for ads, so the revenue is in the toilet. So Patreon is legitimately the reason I can continue to do this during the early parts of the year. So thank you very much for everyone who supports and keeps this channel going with the daily content. It means the world to me. Okay, let's get onto this quickly, because this is a very huge day. The brand new Haslab has officially dropped. It is Omega Prime, defying a lot of our expectations, because remember, for a while now, we have been going with the idea that Haslabs couldn't be Optimus Prime because no Optimus Prime has trouble selling at retail. And that is, you know, largely logical. Kind of just accepted that. That got rescinded because it was assumed information, even though it came from an official source. It was just information they assumed. Well, things change, plans change. We're getting Omega Prime from Robots in Disguise 2001. Alright, we're on TFW 2005 for this article, so we're going to just take a look at their little write-up for everything about this, because it's there's a ton here. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes info, and just a lot of fluff material. So, if you're unfamiliar with RID 2001, it's a different take on Ultra Magnus. Optimus Prime is very much Optimus Prime, defender of the Earth, protector of humans, etc., etc. It's a very different take on Ultra Magnus. He is Optimus Prime's brother. He thought that he was destined to inherit the Matrix. He did not. He carries a chip on his shoulder as a result. He is a very broody, angry Ultra Magnus, and not nearly as cooperative. However, they do make a very legendary Optimus Prime combiner, potentially the best one Optimus Prime ever got. So we've got normal information here. Let's just a lot of stuff. So 8.5-inch Optimus Prime, 15-inch command center. That's the base mode with the tower. He does have the original blaster accessory, which has the wheel on it still. The wheel doesn't have any purpose, but they kept it. 2 Matrix of Leadership accessories, which is interesting. I didn't catch that in the photo, so I might have to look more carefully. Let's see. Well, I guess both of them have a Matrix. That's kind of how that worked in that series. 11.5-inch Ultra Magnus figure, about a foot tall. The Magnus is a foot tall. I should also mention, this is for the base Optimus Prime, is 8.5 inches, so like the base Optimus is leader class. And then the super mode is over a foot tall. Kind of insane. You also see, including a 5 3/4-inch Autobot Blue Bolts figure. We'll get into that. Just tons and tons of stuff. This is just normal fluff information. Just your basic stuff that you normally find on the back of the box, just to kind of give you the rough idea. We'll take a look at this in the photos. Just suffice to say, the biggest part you're going to get out of this chunk of info is that Tier 1, for the unlocks, Tier 1 is 13,000 backers, which is going to be the Matrix Blade, which he held in the finale of the series. In the original toy, it was exclusive to the Japanese version, and I think only the boxed set version got this, actually. And it is just Fortress Maximus's sword from the Japanese G1. Given to a smaller toy. The new one is a completely new sculpt. And then Tier 2's 16,000 is going to be 2 Space Bridge display stands. This is the first series where the Space Bridge was a physical thing, like an actual road that was projected to take the Autobots from one place on the Earth to another. Called a Space Bridge, but it's more equivalent to what Prime called a ground bridge. So it's not a bad choice for accessory. It's just kind of odd. So let's pop over to here real quick. We'll start taking a look at some of the photos here in a second. But let's go into some of the little information that BMAC and Evan gave us during the actual live stream reveal. The design is focused on stability in super mode. Now, and he's able to support all of his combinations. So, if you hadn't ever played with the original, it's a really cool toy, but once you got it in Omega Prime, it is pretty rickety. It's carrying a ton of weight, and there are some things that make it incredibly awkward. Like putting like Magnus's big cannon pack on his back like it's supposed to go does make him incredibly back heavy, and it makes it very awkward to start getting into poses. So if this is designed to actually be a lot more solid in that mode, then that's going to be a nice relief. Because, you know, the old toys, they're good. The old toys are good, but they are a little bit shaky. They are a little bit shaky once combined. Optimus Prime is bigger than his original toy, looks quite big compared to recent retail toys. We're going to be taking a look at that. There are comparison shots. The base mode is compatible with Titan Masters, has spaces for them to sit. That's actually cool. So the original base mode was mostly just the armor bits kibbled together in, you know, while Optimus was in his just standard robot mode, this is pretty much how the new one's going to go too, but they added some functionality to it, which is good. It's weird that they went with Titan Master scale, considering it's been a long time. Let's see, proportions in Super Mode have been improved. Super Mode is tall enough for the ladder to not need to be folded for this figure to stand, which is great. The original one, you had to fold the tip of the ladder all the way over 180 degrees in order to get it to stand up correctly. Let's see. The final toy will still feature the same vac metallized parts of the original toy. We've seen with modern Haslabs, they like putting some vac chrome on things. Ultra Magnus is now commander size and has got the most improvements compared to the original toy in terms of proportion, stability, and articulation. Now features proper wide feet with angle tilts. The original toy is very hollow-legged. It's literally like an L shape of panels with a thigh connected at the top. So very hollow legs and very small feet, which made him very unstable in robot mode. He is one of those that is very much designed specifically to combine with Optimus Prime, so much of the engineering went into that, and it really was the robot mode that took the biggest hit. So we'll see how improved that is here in a bit. Ultramax will have a spot for the Energon Matrix on his chest, which is new. That was not something the original could do, so that's where you get your two matrices. Figures were designed by Hisashi Yuki, designer of the original toys, which is really cool that he got a second round at it. New Autobot Blue Bolt was Yuki-san's idea. We'll see, which is a deluxe size weaponizer armorizer. It's Ultra Magnus's weapon pack. It's his cannon pack turned into a weaponizer. So we're getting a third figure out of this that didn't exist before. It's kind of a cool idea. When you break apart Blue Bolt and all its components, some of them can be used as gap fillers for Ultra Magnus, which is a cool idea as well. The shake hand setup for combination is still possible. That's anime accurate. Omega Prime's chest piece will be vac metallized as well, which means the front end of Ultra Magnus's truck mode will also be vac metallized. Magnus parts, which were still visible in combined mode, like the head and parts of his arms, are now hidden or integrated in the combination. They've cleaned up the combo a lot, which is a great thing to hear. Omega Prime is even bigger than the original toy and even bigger than the Haslab Victory or Death Source. You're seeing that here soon. Energon Blade is a new sculpt. So with the modern Titan's Return Fort Max, I believe the Japanese version did include that saber. I could be wrong about that, but this is a brand new sculpt from the ground up, which is cool to hear. So that's the that's the basic info behind what we've got going on here. So let's actually finally get to the part you want to hear. Pictures and my analysis of it. So Optimus Prime himself looks really nice. Now these are colorized renders, but with the Haslab having essentially whatever budget they need, this is going to be how the final version looks. I'm not really concerned about this being any different. He does look great. The spot that gets me right here, like immediately, aside from the added articulation, like wrist swivels, thigh swivels that weren't there on the original toy, and also like highly articulated feet as well. What gets me is, oh god, where was I? Just noticed it. Okay, so the kibble around the arms now slides back. Those big shells those normally in the original toy extended around the hand. Now they can move backward, giving the hands a lot more clearance, and it looks a lot better, in my opinion. It also looks like the doors on the chest are going to be translucent. Okay. I guess I can't win them all. Some of it's going to be clear. Can't avoid that. He does look good, though. He does look good. We'll get to comparison shots later, because I did do some comparisons. There's the big battle, attack mode that he has. Those are the feet of his super mode, by the way. Nice that they kept that functionality in. There's the full combined mode. He looks amazing here. He looks absolutely amazing. You can see where the ladder doesn't need to fold, so it can just act as a tripod for any of the more expressive poses you might want. He's got ankle tilt in the super mode. Crazy. Kind of crazy. Articulated hands. A lot of this is carried over from the original toy. Keep in mind, the original toy is still pretty good. It aged pretty well. But this has definitely got some upgrades going to it. And a lot of different design aspects. And it looks really, really nice. I really like how this looks. I'm interested to see how the combination mode works, because it looks like it does something different than the original. The original just kind of like extended its arm base out. This one looks like it actually expands the entire chest in order to get the arms wide enough to fit the armor. I know Hasbro showed off a little bit of that with the prototypes. I don't think I have those pictures queued up, but I think that's what they did with it. I might go check here. There's the base mode. It's mostly just kibble and a tower. I'm not seeing where Titan Masters are supposed to sit. Like, there's a lot of little places where you could just put them, I guess. But, yeah, I'm not seeing any, like, actual specific spots where they would go. Spy, you know what would have been great is spy changers. If we could have had, like, spy changers for this. And actually had those at size enough to use the base mode. That would have been a nice stretch goal. You can see there just underneath the bumper. There you see those two red wheels. That's the blaster. They actually included it, which is cool. You can see the missile racks on top. I don't think these are spring-loaded. I think it's just for design detail. I think that might be the one gimmick that got lost here outside of electronics. Is like those I don't think are going to fire. Be nice if they would, but I think they'd be difficult to work in, and legal stuff with launching missiles. Magnus, I think, looks a lot better than the original. I can see a wider shoulder stance, adjusted proportions in the torso, in particular the pelvis and midsection. On the original is just like a flat block. Now they've added some character and some definition to it, which looks a lot better. I'm also noticing he has more of an inside of a leg. I mean, it's still kind of thin if you see it from the side, but the fact that they actually did fill in the side of the leg makes it look so much more solid than the original toy, which I do really like. There are some details that are a little bit different. We're going to see those in the comparisons I'll end off with. But overall, I do think it looks good. I might have preferred a little bit more of a stern face with him, because he is, like I said, he's a grumpy boy. He's bitter. And I don't think this sculpt quite captures that. I will tell you what I do like. I like the angle on the wings. I like that angle that's added. That's not present in the original, so that gives it a little bit more look of intention. Does look better. Yeah, straight on view, still looking good. Truck mode, I'm hopeful. So we do have Shadow Striker, who is obviously going to be a Sideburn in the future. I am hoping Sideburn can fit inside the car carrier, and the top should still have space enough to get 2 deluxe cars on it in case we get X-Brawn and Prowl. I can't imagine they would do Sideburn and not the other 2 Autobot brothers. And then you can see Blue Bolts on top in its weapon mode. Here's Blue Bolts, and I love the idea of turning this into a weaponizer, which it makes total sense. It makes absolute sense. So this is where Magnus had his firing missile gimmick. It wasn't where his electronics were, because Omega Prime had his own electronics, but this is where a lot of engineering bulk went to, and it really was just a giant accessory weapon that was really kind of awkward in a lot of uses, because it wasn't that great on its own. It's very heavy, so it unbalanced figures very easily. I like the idea of making it an independent figure. That adds a lot of intrigue to me. I really do like how this came out. And yeah, it's just a cool idea. And the idea that it's not just, you can just, turn it into its weapon mode, which I believe we have a shot of that. Yeah, just its weapon mode. But the fact that it can be broken down and plugged into Magnus to kind of fill gaps is great. That's a great use for that big chunk of bulk. Yeah, this is a very clever design. So here's where you get your sizes. Blue Bolt's being deluxe class at just below 6 inches, just below a foot tall of Ultra Magnus, and just above a foot tall for the Super Mode Optimus Prime. That would put both of them as larger than Commander. You would have to go to Jetfire in order to find a Commander that size, and Jetfire is just a big jet. He doesn't have the need to have a super mode, additional base modes, combined modes. So if they were to do this, and we'll get to this, if they were to do this at retail, they would have to be so compromised. I can see why they would do it as a Haslab. There's other reasons too. We might as well get to them now. I was stating that the one thing that kept me from believing that they could be doing Omega Prime is the fact that there's so many good repaints for RID Optimus that this would cut them out from. We have Yellow Splendid Convoy that's gained popularity in the last few years since she became depicted in the Japanese comic books. We have like the black and gold giveaway version of the toy that looks absolutely gorgeous, and there's a matching Magnus. It's a beautiful toy, beautiful figure set if you're lucky enough to have both. You even have like the rejected BotCon Defensor repaint that eventually became the inspiration for Titanium Hotspot, or Hot Zone, we had to call him for trademark. So you actually have a lot of repaint potential. However, it is a point that there really isn't a precedent for a repainted Haslab, because every Haslab that's come out so far, I would argue, haven't really been characters or vehicles that have been appropriate to repaint. There's no real repaint for Star Saber outside of like the Robot Master's Dark version, which, that's a super deep cut. Not that Yellow Splendid isn't, but it's something that some fans would want, whether they remember the Sam's Club version or the modern depiction. I'm thinking about things like that. But there might be a way. Like they might do a Hasbro Pulse exclusive Gen Select repaint, maybe, because it still technically means the original toy was not made available after the campaign. We have yet to see. The reason, okay, so, and like, that's Optimus Prime. Like, I remember, like, in the video that I made, speculating on what the next Haslab was going to be, part of my point against Magnus is the fact that his repaint possibilities is just a couple black repaints. And by black repaints, I mean they switched up some of the blue for black, and that's it. He very much just looks like the same toy. The Sam's Club Optimus Prime that became Yellow Splendid Convoy. The counterpart to it, the Magnus released alongside of it, was just RID Magnus again, but with slightly darker blue plastic. It's such a minor change that even TF Wiki does not feel the need to show an example of it. It's a huge missed opportunity to make a really cool match set in those yellow colors. So Magnus, unfortunately, does not have an appropriate counterpoint to the yellow repaint, which would be the most obvious one to do. It's sad. It is really sad. I would have loved to have seen this at retail level so we could see those potential repaints come out. Doesn't mean we can't, though. I mean, how cool would it be if Hasbro actually did run a contest where like 10 people would actually get a black and gold version of these two? I would love that. I would absolutely love it if they just kind of wound back and went, hey, we're doing a lucky draw ourselves. Because it would be appropriate. Let's see, what else do we have? There's the handshake, which is super cool because that's how they transformed in the show. So it's really cool that they actually worked that in. There's Omega Prime. I will admit, There's there's one part, there's a few parts about this that put me off a little bit. One of it is how they handle the head. Now the horns, the side ears here, they have been rotated down. They should be pointed up. So that's a knock against it. It doesn't look as good as it should in that position. But also it looks like they didn't actually include like actual eyes for Omega Prime. It almost looks like Optimus Prime's eyes inside it. It's not supposed to act like a helmet, but they might have changed that. It's weird. Like, I need to see the in-hand, like the prototypes, to see if that actually exists on the main version, because it's not supposed to be Prime's head inside of a helmet, but it looks like it from the way they've done the eyes. I'm not a fan of how that looks. Overall, I do think it looks good, and they've made some changes that are notable. However, what gets to me is, like, it feels like his pelvis is just too low. Like, this feels like his pelvis is just stretched out too much. I really wish they could have, like, found a way of extending the legs and putting the pelvis up higher so the proportions would be a little bit better. I mean, he doesn't look bad. He doesn't look bad, but he just has a very, like, long midsection when you look at it for too long, which is it was a little bit weird for me. You'll see it more once we get to comparisons, which I think we should go ahead and get to now. We can take a quick look at some of the in-hands of the gray protos, just to see if there's anything to really glean from it. We didn't get to see like enough good photos of the vehicles. The vehicles still look really nice. Let's see, where can we see? Do we have any of the combination? Because I know they were trying to transform the model. Yeah, so like there's how the head flips down. I'm not seeing like how the torso expands. I will admit, it's been a busy day. I've been occupied and distracted, so I haven't actually watched the full video yet. I'm just kind of gleaning all of this off of the reports and photos. I'm not seeing anything that shows me how they combine. There's the backside. The backside looks nice and solid. It's not hollowed out, which is really, really good to see. You can see a lot of parts have been rearranged because we don't have the big speaker box in his back anymore. So we don't have to worry about that engineering-wise. That's kind of cool. Yeah, so things are in the more logical positions. I'll give them that. There's the big weapon on top. This is the position that would very much cause your Omega Prime to fall over. Good that they've actually worked that in. Though, yeah, the horns are still in a weird spot on some of these. I much prefer them rotated all the way up. These photos are not giving me like what I need out of the eyes. I really wanted to see if I could tell if like the helmet was hollow or not, and I'm not getting it. Yeah, it's hard to see if they're just really sunken in or if it actually is Optimus's head sticking through. We'll see that later on. I'm sure at some point they'll demonstrate the combination, but for now, is what it is. There's a lot of your characters together. You can see how big he is compared to Death Saurus. There's a comparison shot with Victory Saber. Prime alone is as big as Victory Saber is. So the full combination is going to be gigantic compared to him. Like, there's how much bigger he is than the original. He's a very beefy boy. Okay, I keep talking about... Oh, there's the shot I wanted. Yeah, there's how much bigger he is than Victory Saber. They are very close. They are very close, but you know, he's about a half a head taller, and he's got a lot more bulk to him than Star Saber and Victory Leo do. So he's got some beef. This is a very beefy toy. All right, let me switch over now. We're already like way over time, but this is a huge news story, and we have a lot to examine, so I think it's okay this time. So let's take a look at comparison shots here that I managed to cobble together. First one we are looking at is the original Omega Prime on the left. A little bit cut out, but you can see what's going on. And then the new one on the right. And you can see where they've made some modifications. In the midsection, it's no longer Magnus's actual hips folded into the torso. It's a panel that looks far more animation accurate, which is, you know, a really nice thing to see. Let's see, this isn't even the photo that I want to start off with. Hang on. Hang on. Let me go back to this. Let's do this in the proper order. I'm not sure why it misarranged these. Okay. Yeah. So here's the originals, just so you can see. Because the first thing I want to point out, height-wise, Ultra Magnus in the original toy line is taller than Prime. On the new ones, it's reversed. Now Prime is the one that's taller. So they've changed the proportions around. If you remember the toys, if you're nostalgic for the toys that might be off-putting, that's more animation accurate. That's actually how it's supposed to go. So good on Hasbro, good on Takara. That's actually correct. So the fact that they can make Magnus smaller than Prime and still make the combination cleaner than the original is really impressive. It shows how far we've come in engineering. Here's the Optimus Prime comparisons. I'm using the Encore that doesn't have the chrome, so just imagine that the chrome is there. You can see a lot of details are sharper. A lot of the lines are a little bit thinner. You can see the improvements in the articulation points. A little bit more paint thrown on the new one. Of course there is. I like how the eyes are a little bit more chromed and prominent on the new one. And then you can see what I mean by the arm kibble too, where we have a solution for that now. I will say the arms don't have quite as much of the roundness as the original one does. That I noticed. Yeah, and there's a little bit more tech greeble on the new one too. So they're very comparable. Obviously, they're very comparable. You can get kind of an inkling of how they've rearranged this toy to work in the modern version. Here's the super mode comparison for you. I do like the bulk of the new one. He does look wider. He looks more powerful. I like how some of the details have been changed so they're not so squared off and blocky in the chest. That's a nice switch up. Something I do notice, things like on the legs, you can see where the pipe detailing on the front of his shins is a little bit thinner. The same is true on the shoulders. So it's a little bit, they've toyed with it, the proportions a little bit. The biggest thing for me is that on the original toy, the cannon, the ladder, is centered now. Where on the original, you can see it's mounted more over his right shoulder. On the original toy, that did allow you to flip it forward in order to fire his cannon in robot mode, and that is an actual thing he can do in the show. So if the new one can do that and still have the whole ladder assembly centered in robot mode when you want it there, that'll be really, really cool. To my knowledge, I didn't see any example that showed that it could do that. So, yet to see. But overall, yeah, I just like how much bulkier it is. I like how much thicker he is. Yeah, and there's just a lot of little things, like how squared off his arms are. You can see they don't just end, his forearms don't end where the blue line is. I'll also let you know, on these, the inside of those forearms on the original are hollow. They are fully encapsulated on the new one. So they've worked in extra panels to make them look more solid, which I really do like. The Magnus definitely got some proportion changes. You can see the torso's been thickened up a little bit. I like his stance a little bit more. He does look a little bit more solid, especially in the legs. In the legs, he definitely they've smoothed out the legs a lot. You don't see as many hinges. You don't see as much transformation greeble going on. And then you can see how improved the inside of the legs are. Whereas on the original, it's a flat panel. It's hollow behind there. Everything is enclosed on the new one. You can also tell just how much better the feet are going to be for stability on this figure, which is great. It looks like he also has a lot of the same articulation additions that the original one, that the Optimus Prime enjoys. The big thing to him is how his transformation from truck to robot is going to work, because the original is a rare instance of required part forming. You had to disconnect the legs and reconnect them in the truck mode. Now, granted, this is just kind of how RID did its larger figures. Optimus Prime also requires you to, basically the fire truck mode is incomplete without all the armor bits. So the armor bits, if you just want them in normal robot, just kind of have to sit there. You kind of have to combine the base mode. So you can make an argument that they're both kind of the same in that engineering style. But it also comes from the fact that Magnus has to be combiner armor. So, cool to see. You can also see where they've changed up some details. The knees definitely have a lot of different shapes to them. They tried to make them a little bit less blocky, but they're also smoother. And they are missing a little bit of the silver detailing around the midsection. A little bit of an odd choice there, because that is animation accurate too. It's missing here for some reason. But no, like overall it does look, again, more solid, more smooth. Looks like it's more leaning more toward the animation model. I will say some of the details look flatter, which I'm not terribly happy about. But if you're leaning more toward animation accurate, that's not terribly surprising. Here's the Omega Prime comparison. So like we said, ignore the shoulder, ignore the horn thing. The horn thing is weird. The wings definitely look better in their new orientation and the new sharp edges. Again, lots of things that look more solid. You can see where the pelvis thing kind of gets to me, where it looks like his torso is a little bit more stretched out than the original one is. On the other hand, his arms don't look as gorilla as the original one does. So it feels like some proportions are a little bit worse, but some are a little bit better. A little bit of give and take on that one, I feel. It still looks super impressive. I still really like how this looks overall. And the fact that this combination now has a lot of Magnus's additional junk hidden away, like, you pointed it out. The midsection, the blue and white midsection on the original, that's his thighs. That's Ultra Magnus's thighs. It's his universal hip joints, is what it is. But they've turned it more anime accurate with the midsection here that's a new panel that folds down. So where did the thighs go? If this is hiding the head and it's hiding the forearms, or like the upper arms that were just kind of like exposed on the original toy, where did those go? Where did the thighs go? I'm super curious how this actually works. I'm super curious. It seems like they accomplished the same thing, but did a ton of cleanup to it. This is where I'm kind of like, there's people saying like this could have been a retail release. There's a lot of reasons why it could not be. We'll get to that here at the end. I got one more comparison for you, which is anime. This is the actual animation model. You can see the molding in the midsection is attempting to come closer to how it looked than the original toy. You can see some of the details, are more akin to how they looked in the anime. There is still a lot of toy detail in the new toy, so don't get me wrong there. It's not completely animation accurate. It's kind of doing what Universe does, which is trying to split the difference between the two. Use the toy details to make the animation model a little bit less flat. I think it's doing a good job overall. Like, they're not going to get it dead on to how it looked in the cartoon, because this is impossible. There's a lot of artistic license being used here, but it does look good. I'll give it that. It still looks good. We're going to end off on a couple of notes here that came in late, because the team did actually make mention of this. So they did mention that there might actually be just a few surprises that this figure can do that they haven't announced yet, which would be really cool if there's, a few extra things. Just, because they got to keep the hype going, right? They got to keep the hype for this going for the next 45 days. So we're going to see little bits here and there so they can keep this in the news cycle. You're going to see this toy as a mainstay in my news roundups, for the next month and a half. I guarantee you, I guarantee you the next 6 news roundups are going to have some little update about all the extra stuff this set can do. And then there's the bidder update, which I think is more interesting, because this is literally the Hasbro team flat out stating why this cannot be done as commanders. If we made them commander, they would have to be smaller, one a year. Blue Bolts would have been a separate deluxe, and we couldn't have offered the sword and display stands. So the bulk and engineering behind these, like I said, both of these are as big as Jetfire, who was just one big jet who was ultimately kind of simple. Whereas all of these have at least 3 modes, with arguably Optimus has, 4 modes. And all of this has to work, and like working in all the original gimmicks as well, like the extra ways that Optimus can use as armor in robot mode. All of that has to be accounted for, which is so much extra engineering and so many extra parts. If they brought these out at retail, yeah, they could do it. They would be a lot smaller. They would be a lot more simple. They'd probably be hollowed out. What you saw in these look dead solid. These do not look hollowed. You'd probably see Magnus looking a little bit more like the original with the thin legs and all that. They might not have been big enough to store deluxes in Ultra Magnus's truck mode, things like that. And that does commit them to 2 years where they have to do RID. And let's be honest, Ultra Magnus on his own at retail would die a death. It would be one of those commanders that ended up at clearance aisles. It would end up in liquidators. So the only way to get this as a complete package is going to be like this. I would make the same argument with Victory Saber, where I do think a Star Saber at leader or commander class at retail would sell. Victory Leo would not. You would not get people to go in on a leader class Victory Leo outside of hardcore fans. It would be a shelf warmer because it's not a character kids identify. And, you know, let's be honest, the jet mode is trash. It's not going to look like a cool toy for a kid. And yeah, it's just not well known enough. And Ultra Magnus would hold the same problem. You'd probably have just people complaining like, why is this a weird Ultra Magnus? Why isn't this G1 Ultra Magnus? Outside of the fact that we just got one, you know, and then like because you set that in like 2 years down the line thing, that would also mean that you are stuck. You are absolutely stuck doing it. So if this didn't work out, if one or two of these did not sell, then if by some weird thing Optimus Prime didn't sell very well, you're stuck doing the Magnus, knowing it's going to sell even worse. And that also cuts you off from doing things like a new combiner team, like Menasor. There's a lot of reasons why this was done at Haslab, and ultimately I'm glad it was done at Haslab. And all things considered, if these were like larger commanders, like at $100, like if these were larger commanders at like $100 instead of $90, you're looking at. You're basically looking at that in price. You're basically looking at paying about $115 each, $110 each, something like that, and then another $25 for the deluxe thrown in. I don't think this is a bad price for what they are. I really don't. I think this is about spot on what they should be. So this has been a very long video, and yeah, my voice is already worn out because we've been analyzing everything about these. So thank you for watching. If you made it this far, I do appreciate it. I hope you are excited for this set. I certainly am. I will be backing it myself, and we will be talking about it for the next month and a half, I am sure. But for now, thank you everyone for watching. Let me know what you think of Omega Prime in the comments below. By the way, no, I didn't call it. Everyone's been leaving me comments on my videos today going like, yeah, man, you totally called this. Like, no, I didn't. Hasbro is very bad at hints and teases. They want you to know who it's going to be. The hints have been very blatant. All I did was pay attention. But as I said, let me know how you think, what you think of Omega Prime in the comments below. And as always, I will see you next time.